go ahead, take a deep breath, pull it in, hold, and let it out. You're here today to develop and strengthen your mindset because you know that weekly training sessions in mindfulness is the missing link the world is searching for when it comes to business success. So set aside the external logistical side of business growth and come with me now to a world of focus, purpose, calm, confidence, and personal power using NLP and CBT tools and techniques. I am your host, Leah Marie, and you're listening to Flip the Switch. Hello and welcome back. I am excited to jump into a new topic today of prioritization versus procrastination. And I'm curious, which side of the coin are you on? Now, we are going to have a little bit of fun with this because there has been a little lie going around about these two things being interchangeable. And I'm curious what your thoughts and feelings are on the matter. Now, today we're going to talk about some of the thoughts and feelings that I have on the matter, and I'm also going to share with you some stories that go along with this, or a story in particular. Now, we're going to be jumping in, and this is not going to be a very long podcast today. This is going to be a short and sweet podcast, but we are going to get to the point, and we are going to have some answers by the end of this podcast. In fact, by the end of this episode, you should be able to have a very clear view of what prioritization and procrastination really are. We're also going to look at how lies are hidden and how we sift through or filter through the stuff to discover truth. Now, we're going to jump right into this, and we're going to be talking about, like I said, identifying the truths and the lies around procrastination and prioritization. Now, I'm curious, have you ever heard somebody use these interchangeably, saying that procrastination is just prioritization? It's them moving something that is not a priority to them to the back burner? Well, this may be the case. However, when does it really become procrastination? When do we start to say, okay, enough's enough. This is not just me prioritizing. This is actually an issue because it's disrupting things. Now, some people, like I said, they consider these things the same thing, but I would like to stop for a few minutes and just identify a definition to these 2 points. Now, if we were to look at prioritization, my definition of this would be selecting from a list of activities or tasks which items are of most importance and then arranging them in this order. That makes sense when you are prioritizing something. Procrastination, on the other hand, has more of a negative connotation in the sense that we generally refer to it as repeatedly putting off a specific item or activity, not just moving it as a prioritization task, but repeatedly putting it off to avoid or to ignore an activity or a task that would actually be beneficial if it was completed. Seeing these two items as the same is simply a rationalization of the conscious mind to appease the guilt that we feel for once again tossing that needed activity or item to the back burner. If it has been moved back more than 3 times, it could be a problem. Let's try asking ourselves these questions. How needed is this activity? Maybe we should consider moving it off the list altogether. If it keeps getting put back, it's obviously not important. It's then that we consider, okay, well, if it keeps staying on the list, then it has value, it has importance. So what is that importance? And if it is important, then maybe I should stop procrastinating it and figure out why I'm procrastinating and recognize that this is a real thing. These are things to consider if you want to switch from prioritization and recognize that there is procrastination and they are two very different things. Now, let's say you have been caught up in this thought of accepting that procrastination is just you prioritizing. And if that's the case, you're not alone. Like I said, I've been hearing this a lot. And this is also a really good time to recognize that your inner voice that runs your subconscious is actually doing a fantastic job. It is doing a great job of providing you with a reasonable reason, or unfortunately a justification, as to why you're putting off that uncomfortable thing. After all, that's its job. That is the job of your subconscious, to keep everything normal, everything the same, everything safe, because we know normal. Even if it is uncomfortable, it's better than the unknown. You've heard that saying before, better the evil you know than the evil you don't, or the devil you know versus the devil you don't. It's the same thing. Our subconscious at least knows that whatever we're dealing with right now hasn't killed us yet, and so it still seems safer than doing something else that does not seem appealing or comfortable or fun. Now, inside of Flip the Switch, here and in the Facebook group, we always want to look at things differently. So if you are ready to start changing some thoughts, then let's move forward. Now, I hope that you are, because this is where growth and change come from. Let's have some fun with this, you guys. Let's look at how we would apply these principles in our own life. How do we have that shift from prioritization, procrastination, separating the two, utilizing them, and all of that? Well, first of all, we need to look for the lie. And we need to bring in our conscious awareness to be able to do that. So I'll give you 2 hints that will help you start this new awareness immediately. Number 1, the lie will be surrounded by truth, which is why we can get caught unawares, and that lying can sneak past our security system. Number 2, the lie feels better than the truth. It feels more comfortable. And this is what I was just referring to a moment ago. Our subconscious says, yes, this may be uncomfortable. I may be putting something off and I don't like the guilt, but it's a heck of a lot better than going and dealing with that issue where I don't exactly know what the result is going to be, or I really don't like the idea of having to go through the pain or the struggle that is involved. So I'd like to try a little experiment. I'm going to share a conversation with you, and let's see if you can spot the lie. Now, this will be helpful because you'll be able to test your own awareness level. Are you ready? I'm going to use a conversation that I recently saw inside of a Facebook group, and it started with a question. Now, this is not a question that I asked. There was a lady that asked a question, a lady that responded, and then there was my response. So we're going to go in that order. The first question that was posted said, how many times a day do you feel you're falling behind? Now, a group member responded with, I have that feeling every once in a while, but it's usually if I'm not being productive during nap time. Every so often, I decide to watch a show or chat with friends or even nap while my son sleeps. Those are the times when I feel that anxiety creep in, like, oh goodness, I could be doing something for my business goals right now. But overall, I just remind myself that I can afford these luxuries because I grind during my work hours. Okay, so that's the end of her comment. Now, what I'm curious about is if you guys could spot the lie inside of this comment so that you can start to see the difference here. Now, I'll give you a bit of a hint. The lie is one that we tell ourselves. It's not a lie we tell other people. Okay, so it's a lie that we tell ourselves. Let's see if you found what I found. Here was my response to this conversation, and I think that you'll be able to recognize the lie as you listen to my response. My response is this. How would things play out if, quote, talking to friends, watching a show, or taking a nap, unquote, weren't considered, quote, luxuries, unquote, but instead they were scheduled in as necessary recharge time? Would knowing these pockets of time were there and designated for recharge allow you to fully enjoy them without guilt? And Would having them scheduled allow you to select how often they occur? That's the end of my question. So let's see if you guys found it. Do you see it? The lie she was telling herself was that the basic human needs of connection and recharge were a luxury. These are basic needs for sustainability. She was able to believe the lie because it was surrounded by truths. Do you remember when I said that the number one secret is when you're looking for the lie, it will be surrounded by truth? And this is exactly what happened. So let's look at some of those truths. There was a fact, the fact that her most productive time was when her son was napping. That was a truth. Another truth, that work needed to be done. Another truth, that if she chose one thing over another, her time frames would be off. Now, I wasn't going to tell her, hey, by the way, you're lying to yourself, wake up. Instead, I asked her a question so that she could start to discover the lie herself. Now, what part of the lie had her feeling comfortable? Because remember, that's number 2, is that our lie often feels more comfortable than the truth. Well, let's take a look. If she saw these needs as luxuries, it would allow her to use this guilt and this discomfort as fuel to accomplish even more work when she got the next chance. This gave her the awesome feeling of being able to check off more things on her list, because we all know that's like a drug, right? We love checking things off, as well as filling that need for her for feeling like she was being productive and her time was therefore well spent and worth the sacrifice. So, my question to you is, how do we see this in our lives? How do you experience this in your life? What are you procrastinating and just telling yourself you're prioritizing? That's the first place to look, is consider, what am I actually procrastinating? What am I repeatedly putting off that would be of benefit to me if I would just get it done? Then the next step is to look for those 2 pieces. Number 1, I need to identify where the lie is, okay? And I'm going to look around and see, okay, what are all the truths? Where are the facts? So I can find that lie. And number 2, what's the payoff of this lie? Why is this more comfortable to be able to put this off? And is it actually more comfortable, right? Is that real? So these are a couple of questions that you can ask yourself. Now you know what to look for to spot a lie when it comes to procrastination. The first thing you need is awareness. Does something feel hard? Or do you feel like avoiding or justifying or rationalizing something? The second thing is to look for what truth facts are present. Also consider what is the comfort and what are the payoffs that come with this action. Now, after you have identified the lie and the truth facts around it, the last point, and this is what I brought up in my conversation when I responded to this conversation, was that I asked the woman, right? So she was able to identify, okay, the lie is that I'm calling this a luxury. So then what we do is we want to change that and say, okay, so if I know that this is an actual human need, this is not a luxury, and calling it a luxury is a lie, then how do I change that? What would allow me to be able to act differently? How could I see this differently? And that was when I brought in the point that this is an actual human need. And yes, I agree that if she put this human need in every single day during her son's nap, it would interfere with her productivity. However, if just 2 days a week or 1 day a week, she set aside the time for that, then she would be able to get more work completed during the other areas because she is not feeling deprived of core human needs that we all have. So at this point, it allows for this individual to stop procrastinating, putting off the time that she so needs to rejuvenate, and then binge watching TV shows or sleeping through exhausted and then feeling the guilt after. Now she can stop procrastinating that. She can actually plan it in, look forward to those time slots that are present, and then she can be focused when she actually is working. Do you guys see how this works? When we slow down, we have a different perspective. I like to tell the story about the wasp that gets caught in the pop bottle. So if you guys have ever had like a Sprite bottle, they're green, you can see through them, right? So let's say that you're sitting out on a hot day and the Sprite bottle is sitting out. You've had something to drink. One of the kids took off with the lid or it fell or whatever. Either way, there's no lid on it. There's a little bit of pop in the bottom, and so that sweet nectar is exciting for the bees and the wasps. And so one climbs in, it gets in there, but of course, now that it's in there, it realizes it's trapped and it starts buzzing around frantically, smashing its head against the side, trying to get out. And that's what we often do, is we're smacking our heads against the wall trying to figure out how to change something. And if we would just slow down a moment, if that wasp would just land on the bottle and slow down, it would realize that it could just crawl to safety and be out in its freedom again. But the longer it keeps buzzing around insanely, trying to work harder and do more to figure out the problem instead of slowing down, the more exhausted it is, and the more likely it is to burn out and actually die in this case, right? Now, we don't want our businesses to burn out. We don't want our bodies to burn out. We don't want our businesses to die. And so when you come across something like this, where you have got prioritization happening in some areas of your life and procrastination happening in others, slow down, separate the two, and decide what is the best course of action. Look for the lies, look for the truth, and then consider what your options are and how you could look at it differently in order to incorporate an actionable result that will bring you the goals and the destination you seek. I want to sincerely thank you and appreciate you today for showing up here on Flip the Switch. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a training session in your mindset mastery, leveling up your business success. And be a good friend. Share this episode with a fellow business builder. I'll see you next week, same time, same place.